Good evening. Welcome to the Wyndham-Raymond School District Board of Directors meeting. It is Wednesday, August 28th, 2024. We are in the Wyndham High School auditorium and it is 6:30 p.m. May I have a roll call, please?
Jessica Bridges, Jenny Butler,
Here.
Jody Carroll, Caitlin Downs,
Here.
Marge Gavoni,
Here.
Shar Jewell, Joe Kellner,
Here.
Grace Levitt,
Here.
Christina Small,
Here.
Jolene Bailey.
Here.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any adjustments to the agenda?
We don't have any adjustments to the agenda tonight.
Okay, now is the time for public input. The purpose of public input is to provide an opportunity to address the board on matters specific to our schools and educational matters. All other comments beyond that scope are not appropriate for this meeting. The board will listen carefully to all members of the public but will not respond. Speakers are expected to follow rules of common decency and decorum. Interrupting any speaker or board member during commentary is not allowed. We ask that all speakers address the board, not the audience. Each person will be permitted to address the board one time during public comment with a maximum speaking time of 3 minutes. Sharing time with another speaker is not permitted. I will alert the speaker at the 3-minute mark. If speakers do not complete their comments within the allotted 3 minutes, they may submit a written statement to the board. Written statements are also accepted from those who do not wish to speak publicly. Requests for information or concerns that require further research will be noted and referred to the superintendent for further action if necessary. Discussion of matters involving individual students is not permitted during public comment due to the privacy, confidentiality, and due process rights of any RSU14 student. Comments regarding any individual staff, either by name or specifically identifiable by position, are not permitted. If the comment continues, the mic will be turned off. Complaints about any district employee should follow the process outlined in Policy KEB, Public Complaints about School Personnel, and are not permitted during public comment. We ask that adults share their first and last name in the town they reside in. Students are only required to share their first name. Would anybody like to speak? Seeing none, I will close public comment and we will move on to superintendent's report.
Well, it's good to be back in the auditorium, and it's good to be back and getting ready for the start of a new school year. Tomorrow morning here in the auditorium, all of our staff in RSU14 will be back, and we'll be doing our annual opening day celebration. It's a chance for, all of us to come together as an entire RSU. It's the only time of the year where we're all in one room. It's a chance for us to hear from the chamber singers, and we have a newly minted group of freshmen who will be joining the chamber singers. Tomorrow will be their first performance. And also it's an opportunity for me to talk about goals for the year for the district and to share some of the work that's upcoming. Tomorrow I'm going to be talking about the importance of students having strong skills and then being able to apply those skills in problem solving and work situations, and also in real-world situations. In addition, I'm going to be talking about the importance of having a strong personal relationship with students so that students are engaged, and they want to come to school, and they feel connected to their schools and the teachers that they have. In addition, tomorrow we're going to be celebrating longevity awards. It's always kind of a fun way to recognize people who've been here 10 years, 15 years, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, and someone with 45 years tomorrow. Alan Hodgson, who's worked for us for 45 years in the district. Amazing longevity, but it's always a fun opportunity to celebrate everybody. In addition, next week we get a chance to welcome our students back, and grades 1 through 9 will be here on Tuesday. It's a freshman orientation day, step-up day. Actually, also with the bar program, they're going to be having a barbecue. Get it for bar, and a good opening celebration for our students who are going to be coming into freshman teaming. Grades 1 through 12 on Wednesday, and then we also have some staggered starts with pre-K and K coming up. But it's been a long summer. I mean, this has been, I think, one of the longest summers that we've had that I can remember. And we're all looking forward to having students back in the buildings and back in the district. It's been fun seeing students out in preseason and getting some of those athletics underway. It was great seeing all the parking lots on campus full tonight with open houses, and it's just nice to be able to welcome students and families back. It's also been an exciting week for us for school construction. We received our final main DEP permit last Tuesday. Shaw Brothers started that exact same day, and if you've driven by the new school site down at 61 Wyndham Center Road, there's been quite a bit of work that's been done in just a week. It's amazing how much dirt that they've moved and how much work that they've done. For board members, I included in your packets, it's just a small phasing map. It does have a little bit of color on it, and that color, if you look to where the building's going to be, it looks just like this in your packets. If you look around the building, there's a red line that's going to be bid out in January, but if you go out to Wyndham Center Road, you see almost a goldenrod color that goes down around the roads, around the parking lots, and around the whole outside perimeter. All of that work is planned to be done before snow flies this year. So quite a bit of work. Ball fields and things will be level, but they will not be seeded probably until next spring. So a lot of work, a lot of large machines that are down there hitting the ground running, a lot of good things that are happening with that. We are on schedule and we are under budget, and I hope that we can continue to say that throughout the length of this project, but it's a good place to be. I set out some invites today to Raymond Select Board, Wyndham Town Council, Raymond Town Manager, Wyndham Town Manager, our construction committee, the school board. We're going to be having a celebration on September 21st at 9 a.m., which will be our official groundbreaking ceremony. There's an ad that's in the Eagle that will run for the next 3 weeks. It starts this Friday. In addition, we'll be putting something out on Parent Square this Friday as well, inviting the community. But it's going to be one of those historical moments that we'll all have a chance to celebrate breaking ground on this wonderful new facility. Just a couple other big things that I think the public's going to see as they're coming back. Manchester, huge, huge change to that campus. And for parents who are parent drop-off families at Manchester, you're going to be receiving a map either tomorrow or on Friday of where you should be entering Manchester School so that the traffic flows. I think parents that do parent drop-off at Manchester, one of the things you're going to notice is the drop-off line. There's plenty of room there. But that also means that if you're there really early, your kid is going to have the longest walk as they leave their car and then get dropped off. But some great site improvements up there. The ball fields are starting to come in and the grass is starting to take, and it's just been a huge, huge change. Also for board members in your packets, I've included a whole rundown of the list of summer projects, a memo from Bill. When you get a chance, it'd be a great chance to take a look at that. So again, excited to welcome students back on Tuesday, excited to have the whole staff here tomorrow as we celebrate and kick off the school year.
Questions for Mr. Howell? Okay, we will move on to board roundtables. Anybody have anything they'd like to share? Go ahead, Joe.
Good evening, thank you. I want to just say I had a brief visit at Popsicles with the principal earlier at Wyndham Primary School and had the opportunity to walk around the school, and just you can feel the excitement for the start of the school year, and it's so cool and everybody's so excited. But I just want to say huge thank you to the teachers who've clearly put tons of work in the past couple of weeks in prepping. I know that's obviously not just Wyndham Primary School, but across the district. And also, I always am struck by the facilities and how good the facilities look, and I'm sure this document's reflective of that, so good stuff. Another piece that I picked up on in the agenda, and I know it comes later, but it was in the superintendent's report, so I want to note it. When we mentioned, or when it was mentioned in the last meeting, that there were 2 sudden vacancies in math teachers at the high school, it was like kind of one of those moments. The fact that those spots were able to be filled so quickly and other spots were at the district, I think says a huge amount about our district and people's interest in coming here, and certainly about the administration. So I just want to call that out as something we should all be proud of. Thank you.
Go ahead, Grace.
Thank you. So I would certainly echo what Joe has just said, especially about the facilities. It's amazing all that has happened in the last several months, and really thanks to all involved in that. I just wanted to mention that I went to one of the Measure What Matters sessions that the Department of Ed has been holding around the state, and there's still several more sessions into the next month. It's sort of a listening tour to talk about what we should be measuring, what matters in our schools, what makes a great school, what are the elements of a great school. And it was very interesting, and they've gathered the input. They'll take all the input from these sessions and the group that is working with the DOE called Battelle for Kids, I believe was the name, is going to analyze it and start to develop some metrics, and I thought that that might be something of interest to be listening to as they share that back out over the next several months. So I will certainly participate in anything else I can to kind of hear what develops from that. An interesting prompt that started off the discussions was what used to happen in schools when you were in school that doesn't happen now. It was very hard for me to think back to when I was in school, but we did come up with some things that were interesting and really talking about not just change, but the pace of change that our students are confronted with. And so that was quite interesting. And it was a good representation of people from all different kinds of positions, community members, parents, educators, and so it was very interesting. Thanks.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Jenny.
Likewise, the teachers always getting ready for back to school. It's just amazing everything that they do. And I had shared your concern about hiring 2 math teachers in the middle of the summer. And one of them happens to be the daughter of a former coworker of mine in the math department, which is just thrilling. Nothing to do with that. Adult Ed, the catalog is out. Sign up is happening now. And lots of great opportunities and courses, so check it out online. And I am sure our advisory committee will be meeting sometime in September. I don't have a date yet, but I'll keep you posted.
Okay, I think we're ready to move on to committee reports. Finance has not met. Is that correct? Okay, facilities. Go ahead, Marge.
Okay, facilities, we met yesterday. It was myself, Christina, Caitlin, and we met at the Manchester School, which was very exciting. So we got to do the walk around internally, but more outside. It was a lot more fun. And let me tell you, it is gorgeous there. I mean, I know we need another year before they can go on those fields and everything, but I think the end result is going to be worth the wait. So, Mr. Howell has already gone over a lot of the things at the beginning that we discussed, and a lot of that was the middle school and what is happening at the Manchester School. And I think you're all set with that, right? Okay. But the rest of it was from Bill, who could not be there, so I do have it in writing, which is great. And I'm going to give you a kind of like a rundown. You have the full report in front of you, and as usual, anybody that wants to read it, our meetings and the minutes are always posted on our website. So just go on there and you can read the whole thing. So it's been a very, very busy summer for Bill and his crew. I mean, I know we're all thrilled about we walk around and how great everything looks, but then there's the stuff that you don't necessarily see. Okay, for one, Jordan Small Middle School, the final state revolving renovation project was completed this summer with only a few things left. Cross corridor doors were added, new exterior doors, enhanced card access, 2 new security vestibules, and enhanced security glazing was added in key locations. At Raymond Elementary School, the drinking water upgrade, which is very important, we waited and waited. The new well is online, in addition to the radon removal system. It successfully passed inspection, in fact, just a few days ago, but it is now pending testing, and it will be ready with the exception of the radon system. The radon removal system is expected to be operational in 2 to 3 additional weeks. So, fingers crossed on that one. Wyndham Primary School roof replacement, which is something else. A lot of it was affecting the gym floor. The addition of the structural steel required for the roof upgrade was completed in the boiler room area, the cafeteria, and most of the gym. The abatement and welding process progressed much slower than expected, so the works will have to continue next summer, and that is the part that's in the gym. This will not impact the plan for next summer to replace the roof. As we all know, he had told us once before that structural steel required replacement had to happen prior to the new roof going on. Okay, the project to renovate the CAF was started, and also a new ceiling and new lights are being installed in the primary cafeteria. Wyndham Manchester School site work, I don't think I have to go through that, but all you got to do once you get there, just go down and look at it, and everything looks great. There's been a lot of work done, and it's still continuing. Raymond Elementary School HVAC and electrical system upgrade over the summer. The underground oil tank was removed, the large cast iron boiler was removed, and 2 new high-efficiency condensing boilers arrived on site, are in the final stages of installation, which is great, and it will be the first installation for the RSU of a heat pump water heater, and it was completed further to take further advantage of any excess heat in the boiler room. Next, we have, let's see, the high school drainage, which was a problem. A drainage basin was added on the side of Educational Drive across from the primary school entrance to drain the water. That has always been an issue, and more so this past spring because of all the rain that we got, and it had no way to go. Jordan Small Middle School has a streaming camera installation happened. A video camera has been installed and is in the configuration process to allow for school board meetings to be streamed from Jordan Small Middle School, just like the high school auditorium does. So that's great. So we'll have full coverage there. We also, which is important, we have a formal playground inspection. All RSU14 playgrounds received a formal outside inspection this year. Action items are in process for any updating or changes needed, and most should be completed before school starts. What they found was really very minimal, replacement of wood chips, et cetera. There were no major findings on that, and that's, we hope, will continue. Carpeting replacement. Carpeting was replaced at RES in the main hallway, Wyndham Primary School at 1 entrance and 2 classrooms, and Manchester in 5 classrooms this year. Most of the district carpeting is 20-plus years old each year, and each year the plan is to replace a portion of the carpets. And finally, and this is from Bill, but I'm sure we all share this, a big thanks to all the facility staff and contractors for making this all happen this summer. He would, and this is from Bill, he would also like to thank the school board for the continued support of our efforts to maintain the facilities and the RSU facilities. And I think that is it.
Okay, you're welcome, Bill. Policy Committee.
Good evening. Jody sends her regrets to not be able to be here tonight. The Policy Committee hasn't met since our last meeting. We'll meet again on September the 9th, 9:30 a.m. at the central office. Again, minutes and agendas online.
Great. Curriculum, Jess couldn't be here, and Jenny, I forgot to ask you before the meeting, has curriculum met?
I know we have a whole schedule and it's posted online. I am going to be checking for my calendar to make sure I'm there, so I don't know off the top of my head.
That's fine. Thank you. All right. Next item, report of the secretary.
I move to approve the minutes of the August 7th, 2024 meeting.
Second.
Board discussion. All those in favor? Motion carries. Okay, next item, new appointments.
I move to approve the following appointments for the 2024-2025 school year. And if any name is mispronounced, it's by accident, and I apologize in advance. Marta Melnick, ELL teacher, Wyndham Primary School, MA6, for a salary of $59,357. Jennifer Fink, social worker, 1-year position, Wyndham Primary School, Masters 20, $79,592. Donna Marquette Bell, English teacher, Wyndham High School, BA 27, $81,844. Julia Parmakian, math teacher, Wyndham High School, BA 8, $58,628. Andrew Dennis, math teacher, Wyndham High School, BA 0, $45,695. Caroline Bailey, grade 7 math science, Wyndham Middle School, MA 8, $63,147. Catherine Gerard, art teacher, 1 day a week, Wyndham Primary School, MA 10, $362.81 per day.
Second?
Thank you. Board discussion.
I just have one question on Jennifer Fink, that 1-year position. Could you tell us why that's a 1-year?
That particular position was originally a school counseling position and did not receive any applicants for school counselors. There are different activities that a social worker can do versus a school counselor. So it became a one-year position. And really the major difference between the two, between what a social worker can do in state licensure and what a school counselor can do, is develop curriculum. We'll reevaluate at the end of the year, and we may be able to continue on, but due to the lateness, that's a typical practice for us to do a 1 year.
Thank you.
Further discussion? All those in favor? The motion carries.
Madam Chair, before we move forward, I neglected to introduce Jolene Bailey in my superintendent's reports. Jolene is a junior, but she's actually a rising senior because she's looking to graduate in 3 years. And she went through an application process and an interview process last spring to become the new school board member rep. And I neglected to introduce her during my superintendent's report, so please welcome Jolene to the RSU14 board for this year.
Welcome, Jill.
I'm excited to be here. The interview went well.
Thank you for
Alright.
indulging me in that.
Thank you for remembering. Okay, so item 11 is Maine School Boards Association Annual Delegate Selection is maybe what that was supposed to say. So I think this is a new record that 3 people actually reached out to me to want to attend this.
Wow.
Usually it's like a bit like pulling teeth. So the delegate assembly is a Zoom meeting. It is held on Saturday, October 19th at 9:30 a.m. And then the delegate that we nominate is also expected to be at the regional meeting, which is Monday, September 16th at 6 p.m. My thought process was to send somebody who had not attended in the past, give another opportunity. So in this case, Grace had reached out to me and she hadn't been before. So unless there's objection, I would anybody like to nominate Grace to be the delegate?
I will, if,
You should, I,
okay.
just like I nominate.
Yes, I would like to, I'm sorry, Grace, what's your last name? I nominate Grace Levitt to be the representative at the Maine School Board Association's annual conference.
Thank you. And,
Any second? Did we get a second?
well, I was going to do the.
Second.
No.
Thank you. Well, we also need an alternate. So Jess and Jody had also reached out. Jess ended up having to work, but Jody offered. She agreed to be alternate. So again, if I could get a nomination for Jody as alternate.
I nominate Jody Carroll to be the alternate school board member representative at the Maine School Board Association annual
Second.
meeting.
Thank you. All right, all those in favor? Okay, motion carries. We have our delegate. So next item is Maine School Boards Association resolutions. So by way of explanation, Maine School Boards Association represents school boards across the state and Augusta. So the resolutions guide their lobbying efforts throughout the legislative session, and this process we're about to go through is our input into how they represent us. So the things that we're going to be voting on aren't our policies. However, they may influence school-related legislation, which could necessitate future policy changes. And we're going to read through all these. Very first one was just resolutions that were reviewed with no substantive changes, which is 2A, 5C, securing liability insurance protection. So this is just saying that they looked at it, and that was it, FYI. So next one will actually, I'll take a consensus on each of these, and then if we all agree, we'll just do one vote at the end, and that's how our delegate's going to vote at the assembly. Okay? So let's go ahead with section B.
Begin with, you want me to read these? Sorry, I'll read the
Yes,
whole thing.
please.
Yep. Resolutions proposed for deletion. These resolutions are no longer needed and are not incorporated into other revised resolutions included within section C. 3B, 2D, property and casualty insurance. The Maine School Board Association opposes the concept of state involvement in providing property and casualty insurance for local schools. MSBA believes that any statewide insurance trust established for this purpose be governed by representatives of local school boards and subject to oversight by the State Bureau of Insurance. This was adopted in 1991, and again, this is a deletion.
Any discussion or concerns about that? So do we have a consensus? We're fine with that being deleted? Okay. Next one?
4.17, CDS move to public schools. The Maine School Board Association supports the eventual move of programs for 3 to 5-year-olds into public schools, but only if it is well-planned and continually fully funded by the state as a separate line item independent from the EPS funding formula. We call on the 129th Legislature to convene a task force to inform that plan. Public school staff must be involved, as well as current staff of Child Development Services, DOE leadership, and other appropriate stakeholders. State funding must be adequate to hire staff and provide appropriate services to all eligible children to avoid the kind of shortages documented under the current system. One of the task force's goals will be to develop a detailed funding plan. The goal must be to take the current program and improve it where necessary so our youngest students receive the services and interventions they need to be successful as they move through the public school system. This was adopted in 2018, and again, this is deletion.
More discussion on the deletion of that amendment? So consensus, we're fine with that? Okay. Next one?
4.18, Special Education Reform. The Maine School Board Association believes the special education system created by Congress more than 40 years ago needs to be reviewed and amended on the federal and state level to assure all student needs are being met. A task force created as a result of an MSBA resolution in 2016 has made reasonable proposals for change at the state level. Legislation should be introduced in the first session of the 129th Legislature to implement those changes. This resolution also directs the MSBA officers to urge Maine's congressional delegation to support reforms recommended by the National School Board Association when the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act is brought up for reauthorization and to fully fund the promised federal share of costs. This was adopted in 2018, and again, this is a deletion.
Discussion? We're all fine with deleting that? Okay. All right, next are proposed revisions to existing resolutions. Go ahead. Did you have that one, Jenny, 4.21?
Jen?
Oh,
Did I give you that one? Maybe I didn't. I meant to.
oh, that's okay.
Yours now.
Part C, proposed revisions to existing resolutions. 4.21, renumber. Remove MSBA Resolution Section 4, Special Resolutions, and move to MSBA Resolution Section 2, Policy Statements. Also remove last sentence. Legislative focus on students. The Maine School Boards Association would like to stipulate that legislators and our own Legislative Review Committee review every legislative proposal affecting public education through the lens of whether or not it is in the best interests of the students we serve. The impact on children should be spelled out in both the language of the proposed law and in the testimony we present. If the legislation does not have the student's best interest as its focus, legislators should require it to be clearly explained, redrafted, rejected, or sent back with amendment. To be crossed out, this proposal should be in the form of a resolve voted on in the second session of the 129th Legislature, adopted in 2019, proposed amended 2024.
So the amendment there is just the deletion of the last sentence. Are we all fine with that? Okay. All right, next proposed revision is 2A, 2J, school safety. Recognizing that the threat of violence exists, the Maine School Boards Association, MSBA, urges local school boards to be increasingly vigilant in seeking to promote a safe school culture. To support a public school's responsibility to keep students and staff safe, the MSBA advocates the following comprehensive approach: ongoing risk assessments not only for active shooter attacks but other disruptors that could put students or staff at risk, increased focus on social and emotional support, training on early warning signs around student perpetrators of violence, and programs like Say Something, which encourage students to go to an adult with their concerns about a potentially violent peer, close connections with the Maine Department of Education School Safety Center for resources and recommendations, increased funding in the revolving school renovation fund that includes school safety projects as priorities, support for state and federal funding for school resource officers where appropriate, the use of core values to develop and implement local codes of conduct, and staff training as appropriate. We also support tasking the department's School Safety Center to collect, advise, and disseminate best practices on keeping students safe. Adopted 2018, amended 2020, proposed amended 2024. So if we accept above, the section I just read, it would delete the following. 2A, 2J, the prior version read, school safety. To support a public school's responsibility to keep children and staff safe, the Maine School Boards Association advocates the following comprehensive approach. Ongoing risk assessments not only for active shooter attacks, but other disruptors that could put students or staff at risk. Increased focus on social and emotional support, training on early warning signs around student perpetrators of violence, and programs like Say Something, which encourage students to go to an adult with their concerns about a potentially violent peer. Increased funding in the revolving school renovation fund that includes school safety projects as priorities, and support for state and federal funding for school resource officers where appropriate. We also support tasking the department's facilities office to advise, collect, and disseminate best practices on keeping children safe. Adopted 2018, amended 2020. In addition, this would also delete 2A, 2F, violence in schools. Recognizing that the threat of violence exists, the Maine School Boards Association urges local school boards to be increasingly vigilant in seeking to promote a safe school culture. MSBA supports the use of core values to develop and implement local codes of conduct. School boards should also consider the need for staff training. Adopted 1993, amended 1999 and 2002. Discussion on that one. Are we fine with the swap there? Okay. Next resolution.
2A, 2K, gun-free schools. The Maine School Boards Association, MSBA, supports the current state ban on guns, loaded or unloaded, on school property and opposes any legislative attempts to amend that prohibition. The ban is both symbolic and practical. It affirms ours and the nation's belief that schools should be safe havens and does not invite intended or unintended tragedy by allowing loaded guns on school grounds. Suggestions that schools can somehow monitor whether guns in cars are safely locked and unloaded are unworkable. Furthermore, MSBA supports evidence-based public health interventions to reduce gun violence in schools and communities. Adopted 2018, and that last sentence is the proposed amendment in 2024.
Discussion on that one? Do we have a consensus on that? Okay. Next one.
2A, 3E, state assessment. The Maine School Boards Association, MSBA, is committed to raising student achievement in all districts and believes statewide standardized assessments used appropriately have to be only one of multiple measures of progress toward that goal. The selected state assessment tools should include English language arts, literacy, math, science, and social studies civics. MSBA calls on the Department of Education to give adequate time to allow rigorous review of potential vendors before a contract is awarded, and to maintain consistent assessment for no less than 5 years. Any state assessment selected or developed should be relevant, provide timely feedback to inform instruction, and not consume undue amounts of instructional time in its execution. Adopted 1991, amended in 1999, 2007, 2015, 2020, and this proposed amendment in 2024. And accepting what I've just read would delete the following resolutions. 2A3E, business employment of student. The Maine School Boards Association reminds local school boards of the statute which restricts employment of students during the school year, as well as limits work permits to students with appropriate attendance and grades. Moreover, boards are urged to direct the schools to work closely with parents or guardians, businesses, and potential employers of students to obtain recognition and support of the need for balance between work and schooling to enhance the development of young people. The MSBA urges the Maine legislature to refrain from passing legislation that prescribes a date certain for the opening of Maine schools. MSBA believes that decision is best made at the local level. That was adopted in 1991 and amended in 1999, 2007, and 2020. And what I read previously would also mean deleting this section. 4.12, standardized testing best benchmarks. The Maine School Boards Association is committed to raising student achievement in all districts and believes statewide standardized tests used appropriately have to be one of the multiple measures of progress toward that goal. To be of value, the same standardized tests have to be in place long enough to establish a base year and reliable year-over-year growth measurements. MSBA is calling on the Department of Education to give adequate time to allow a rigorous review of potential vendors before a contract is awarded for new state assessments. Time spent now will help assure the successful implementation of the tests and their use over time to produce comparable achievement data, and that was adopted in 2015. Again, that would be deleted.
Any discussion on that? Personally, I just love that they have taken the sort of flexible language over how long the test should be in place and made it 5 years. Because I think Christine says every single year that we haven't had 3 years in a row of the same test, and as long as she's been in that job. So I hope that one is heated. Do we have
I
consensus
agree
on that?
100%,
Yeah.
because in curriculum, that's been one of the biggest concerns and questions regarding evaluating curriculum is the lack of consistency from testing.
We have consensus on that one? Great, all right. Next one? Yes. Local board responsibility?
Yep.
Okay.
2A, 4M legislative mandates. The main school board.
Nope, sorry.
Oh, wait.
Local board responsibility.
Did I-
Previous page.
Okay. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
2A, 4E, local board responsibility. School boards are the governing bodies of school administrative units comprised of locally elected individuals whose duty is to represent and ensure the best interests of students, staff, and residents, and oversee the operation of their schools while following state law and district policies. The Maine School Boards Association supports local control of educational programs, which allows communities to tailor their educational approach to the specific needs of their students. School boards have direct involvement in developing school policies, budgets, curriculum, and safety for all students and staff within their respective districts. Open dialogue between school boards and constituencies can ease conflict and promote educational objectives. MSBA strongly supports the well-established tradition of local control of education, where school boards directly oversee policy development, curriculum, budget, and facilities management, and work towards the advancement of quality public education. Local decision-making empowers educators to collaborate and innovate, leading to more effective and responsive educational programs. MSBA urges legislators, and Maine's congressional delegation to oppose laws that may hinder or erode local control. Adopted 1974, amended 1976, 1982, 2020, proposed amended 2024. Accepting the above would delete the following resolutions. 2A, 4B, local control. The Maine School Boards Association supports efforts to strengthen the cherished concept of local control of education, whereby school boards, as representatives of the best interests of the residents they represent, directly oversee the operation of their schools and cooperate fully with lay and professional groups toward the advancement of quality public education. Adopted 1963, amended 1982, 1999. Also accepting what I read first would delete this next one. 2A, 4E, local board responsibility. School boards are the governing bodies of school administrative units. They are locally elected public boards obligated to follow state education law in the best interests of the students they serve. They are uniquely empowered to adopt educational policies that address the content and quality of our students' educational experience and their safety and supervision during the school day. Educational policies are not negotiable within local collective bargaining. School boards should maintain a close relationship and a free two-way communication with their constituencies to ease conflict and improve the probability that both board and community are pursuing similar educational objectives. Adopted 1974, amended 1976, 1982, and 2020. This next part would also be deleted. 2A, 4P, preserving local school boards. The Maine School Boards Association is opposed to any efforts to dilute or negate the authority of school boards by eroding local control when it comes to school budgets and policy decisions. These efforts must be opposed on the federal level, where the U.S. DOE is imposing mandates on school boards, and on the state level, where advocates of school choice, charter schools, and voucher systems want to break the bond between school boards and the people that elect them by ignoring school district boundaries. MSBA urges its local legislators and members of its congressional delegation to oppose law changes that erode local control, adopted 2013.
More discussion on that resolution? Do we have consensus to pass it? Okay. All right, next one.
2A4M, legislative mandates. The Maine School Boards Association, MSBA, opposes any legislative unfunded mandates. MSBA believes that should the Maine legislature pass mandates that impact schools, the state should provide additional continuous funding to support affected schools in their implementation of such mandates. By adequately funding educational mandates, schools can support initiatives that promote student success, such as professional development for teachers and access to essential resources and technology. It is crucial for our state to invest in our schools through the funding of these mandates. Adopted 1977, amended 1982, 1986, 1988, 1998, 1999, 2008, 2022, proposed amended 2024. And accepting the above would delete the following resolutions. 2A4M, legislative mandates. Decisions concerning education should be made by the local school board whenever possible. The Maine School Boards Association urges the legislature not to interfere with the decision-making responsibilities of local school boards by requiring educational programs and unfunded mandates beyond these required to maintain standards, equal rights, and opportunities. It was adopted in 1977, amended in 1982, 1986, 1998, 1999, and 2022. Accepting the above would also delete 3B, 3E, funding of mandatory programs. The Maine School Boards Association supports inclusion of geographically diverse citizen input in the development of mandatory programs proposed by the Maine legislature or Congress. MSBA supports full funding of mandated programs adopted 1986, amended 1988, 1999, and 2008.
Discussion on the resolution? Do we have a consensus to pass? Okay. Next one.
2A7A, social service supports. The Maine School Board Association recognizes poverty and food insecurity are adverse childhood experiences that impact child well-being and contribute to the achievement gap. MSBA continues to support funding for free universal school meals for children of Maine. MSBA also encourages legislation that provides support to children and families that addresses poverty, food insecurity, and social needs with programs like Community, School Model, and other community wraparound services. This was adopted in 1993, amended 1999, and proposed amended 2024. Accepting that would delete the following. 2A7A, social service links. The Maine School Boards Association recognizes there are many social needs of children that affect learning. Therefore, local boards are encouraged to examine the role of their schools in meeting the needs of students and their families in a coordinated manner. That was adopted in 1993 and amended in 1999.
Discussion on the resolution? Consensus to pass? All right, next one.
2B1E, multilingual learners. The Maine School Boards Association believes the needs of multilingual learners should be addressed by creating a more inclusive school environment climate for all students. In doing so, students will feel their native language and cultural background is valued while reinforcing a sense of belonging and pride. When students receive adequate support, they are empowered and are more likely to excel academically, contribute positively to their learning environment, and navigate educational challenges with resilience, ultimately fostering a more inclusive and enriching school environment for all. Resources such as English for speakers of other languages, bilingual education, or language support services are essential to ensuring equitable access to education, fostering academic success, boosting self-esteem, and preparing students to thrive in a globalized world where multilingualism is increasingly valued. This was adopted in 1974, amended 1976, 1982, 1999, and proposed amended 2024. Accepting that would delete the following. 2B1E, bilingual education, in recognition of our nation's diversified cultural heritage and some of the educational problems that have resulted from such diversity, the Maine School Boards Association urges the state to work with local units to seek ways of preserving that heritage through the development of educational programs that will ensure that non-English speaking children shall have access to quality education while not impeding their learning of the English language. That was adopted in 1974 and then amended in 1976, 1982, and 1999.
Discussion on the resolution? Consensus to pass? Yep. Okay, next one.
Okay, 2B4C, Equitable Educational Opportunities. The Maine School Boards Association, MSBA, recognizes that students differ in interest, motivation, and ability, yet MSBA is committed to providing equal, but not, there is a, this next equal but not identical is to be deleted and replaced with equitable opportunities in education for all students, and urge that local boards follow through on that commitment. In order to develop the best possible educational programs for all students, MSBA urges school boards to evaluate educational philosophies, policies, and programs periodically in order to make the greatest possible use of new research and techniques in education, teaching, and management. Local boards are encouraged to consider statewide assessment program test results in their ongoing evaluations of educational programming to be deleted by involving parents, other citizens in this process when appropriate. Local boards can use test results in positive, constructive ways. That was all proposed to be deleted. That was adopted 1975, amended 1976, 1982, 1985, 1999, and amended proposed 2024.
I think this is the same.
Equity in education. Next is, and this is new, 2B, 4C, equity in education. All students, regardless of their race, color, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, or expression, religion, ancestry, national origin, disability, age, or economic status, deserve equitable opportunities and support to learn in Maine's public schools. The Maine School Boards Association believes all district leaders should, on an ongoing basis, facilitate a self-examination and discussion around recognizing bias and stereotyping and adopt policies and practices that eliminate them, and that the Maine Department of Education should provide support for this purpose. It was adopted 1992, amended 1999, proposed amended 2024, and will be incorporated into 4.20, which is below. Okay, now accepting the above would delete the following resolution. 2B4E, gender equity. The Maine School Boards Association believes that local school boards have the obligation to recognize and acknowledge gender inequities in their school systems and to work for prevention and correction as needed. School boards need to stand strongly against discrimination of any kind, including unintentional gender bias, and to work to increase sensitivity to that so that all students may have equal educational opportunities. That was adopted 1992 and amended 1999. Also to be deleted is 4.20, equity in education. All students, regardless of their race, color, sex, sexual orientation, gender, religion, ancestry, national origin, disability, age, or economic status, deserve equitable opportunities and support to learn in Maine's public schools. The Maine School Boards Association believes all district leaders should facilitate a self-examination and discussion around recognizing bias and stereotyping and adopt policies and practices that eliminate them, and that this is to be deleted. It's also to be deleted, and that the Maine DOE should provide support for this purpose. That was adopted in 2020.
Discussion on that resolution? Consensus to pass? Okay, next one.
Okay, this is a new one. This is to take place of another. 3A1, essential programs and services. The Maine School Boards Association, MSBA, recognizes both the joint responsibility of municipalities and the state as a whole to provide for the cost of education, as well as the need for a funding model to provide for the equitable and efficient distribution of state monies for education across all Maine school administrative units. While the Essential Programs and Services, EPS, model is used to fill this need, MSBA believes that the original underlying assumptions about school units upon which the model is based, the expectation for educational outcomes to which Maine school districts are presently held, and alterations in local, regional, and national economic conditions may prevent EPS, as currently formulated, from realizing this ongoing responsibility. Excuse me. MSBA calls on the Governor, Commissioner, State Board of Education, and Legislature to work with all deliberate speed to ensure that changes are made to the EPS funding formula such that its original intent for equitable distribution of funds is honored and represents a model for adequacy in all of Maine's disparate and very often broad, rural, low population regions, despite being designed around data from high-performing, cost-effective districts. Metrics of communities' ability to pay for more appropriate than state valuations are incorporated into EPS. The cost matrix of the formula is annually adjusted for inflation, and alternatives to property tax for raising money to support the cost of education are made available to municipalities. Adopted 1995, amended 1998, 2003, 2004, 2008, proposed amended 2024. Accepting the above would delete the following resolutions. 3A1, Essential Programs and Services. The Maine School Board Association, MSBA, has historically been supportive of the development of the Essential Programs and Services EPS school funding model since work commenced on that model by the State Board of Education in 1996. MSBA's support came from the belief that EPS would offer a rational vehicle to ensure equitable funding so that all Maine public school students would have equal access to quality education programs to help them meet the standards of Maine's system of learning results. MSBA is convinced that this school funding model is being used for cost containment rather than directed towards providing adequate educational program offerings. In this application, the EPS model no longer reflects a fair and reasonable funding protocol for an adequate educational program, but instead reflects the funds available for state subsidy. MSBA calls on the Governor, Commissioner, State Board of Education, and Legislature to work with all deliberate speed to complete the EPS model and ensure that the original ends of adequacy, predictability, and sustainability are achieved. Having a completed comprehensive EPS model more accurately shows communities the bare minimum required funding of our public schools. MSBA directs its officers and staff to work through the legislative process to secure an EPS school funding formula that honors EPS original intent, adopted 1995, amended 1998, 2003, 2004, 2008. 3B, 3A, alternatives to property tax, also to be deleted. The Maine State School Boards Association strongly advocates that the legislature act to create alternatives to the property tax to adequately fund education, adopted 1998. Thank you.
I would apologize for that, but I think you volunteered to read it.
That's okay.
Discussion on the resolution. Consensus to adopt, yeah. Okay. All right, next one. We're almost done.
3B, 3B, tuition tax credits and vouchers. The Maine School Boards Association opposes any proposal to provide federal funds, for example, vouchers, tuition tax credits, to the parents or guardians of children who are enrolled in elementary or secondary private schools. Provision of such funds erodes financial support for public schools and disenfranchises local taxpayers by taking away their voice and vote on how education tax dollars are spent. We urge the legislature to oppose any attempts to allow publicly funded voucher or tax credit programs to be established in the state of Maine, adopted in 1981, amended in 1986, 1998, and this is proposed amendment this year. Accepting this would delete the following two resolutions. 2B, 5C, vouchers and education savings accounts. The Maine School Boards Association opposes the use of vouchers, including their latest iteration known as education savings accounts. These vouchers and ESAs erode financial support for public schools and disenfranchise local taxpayers by taking away their voice and vote on how education tax dollars are spent. We urge the legislature to oppose any attempts to allow a publicly funded voucher or ESA program to be established in the state of Maine. That was adopted in 2015. This would also be deleted. 3B, 3B, tuition tax credits and vouchers. The the Maine School Boards Association opposes any proposal to provide federal funds, such as vouchers, tuition tax credits, etc., to the parents or guardians of children who are enrolled in elementary or secondary private schools. That was adopted in 1981 and amended in 1986, 1998.
Discussion on the resolution? Consensus? Yeah, okay. All right, next one.
3B3H, Federal Special Education Program Funding. Providing free appropriate public education, FAPE, for all students in need of special education and related services is a federal mandate under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA. The need for these expensive services is growing as the age range of students covered has been expanded from 3 years of age up to and including 21 years, if not having graduated from high school, and COVID-related school closures, increased poverty, and other negative social pressures are impacting our students. It is vitally important that Congress provide the 40% reimbursement for locally expended funds called for in IDEA, rather than rate of 14% as recently as 2024. The Maine School Board Association urges the Maine congressional delegation to continue to provide strong support for moving toward full funding of the federal reimbursement. Adopted 2000, amended 2008, proposed amended 2024. Accepting the above would delete the following resolutions. 3B3H. The Maine School Boards Association urges members of the Maine congressional delegation to continue to give their strongest support to current efforts at the national level to move federal funding for special education programs toward achieving the original goal of 40% of those costs being supported through federal funding sources. MSBA recommends that the legislature requires the Commissioner of Education prepare annual impact reports relative to the benefit that increased federal share would have on state and local budgets, as well as the positive effect on local and state efforts to achieve Maine's learning results. Adopted 2000, amended 2008, and then it also deletes 4.19 Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA. The Maine School Boards Association urges Congress to reauthorize and fully fund the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, providing 40% reimbursement for locally expended funds for special education costs compared to the 14% currently received from the federal government, adopted in 2022.
Discussion on the resolution? Consensus? Yeah, okay. All right, the following are new resolutions proposed in 2024. Artificial intelligence, AI in schools. The Maine School Boards Association recognizes the use of AI, including generative AI in schools, as a tool to enhance student education. Its purpose should be to support all students to achieve their educational goals. All use of AI should adhere to existing policies. The goal of the use of AI is to promote literacy, providing students the opportunity to learn and to question and evaluate information while making informed decisions about generated content. Appropriate use of AI will guide students to think critically about the results they obtain through AI. AI is not a substitute for schoolwork that requires original thought. Rationale: the use of AI has become commonplace in the corporate world and in other applications of daily life. Students and staff of our public schools will need to know the importance of and the selective purpose of AI for the positive, informed use of this tool. Discussion on the resolution. Consensus? Good there? Okay, next one is school funding, submitted by RSU26 Orno. The legislature and the governor need to not only fund 55% of EPS, but ensure that EPS increases in pace with inflation. And they need to restore the real dollar funding lost in recent years when EPS has fallen badly behind inflation. Rationale: funding 55% of EPS means little if EPS does not keep up with inflation. In fact, that scenario is the same as cutting funding to the schools in real dollar terms. In the last 3 years since the 55% milestone was reached, funding for schools has actually been cut by 5 to 10% in real dollar terms due to failing to keep EPS up with inflation. This has resulted in large property tax increases and burdens on homeowners in districts across the state and/or large budget cuts that significantly hurt students. Discussion on the resolution? Okay, consensus? Okay. I was so eager to get through that, I don't think we actually read the motion. Do you have,
So-
did somebody make a motion for item 12?
No.
We did
I don't
not.
think so. We were
Motion,
waiting to read
please.
through those. That's fine. I move to support the proposed MSBA resolutions at the annual October meeting.
Second.
Thank you. We basically already did the board discussion. I think oh, yes, please, go ahead.
Any concerns from administration?
No, there aren't any concerns, and just a couple highlight areas there. So first of all, EPS, the legislature has, excuse me, has directed a study of EPS, and there's currently MEPRI, which is a part of University of Southern Maine, is doing a statewide survey of superintendents. So to see that as a focus area, the other focus area, Jenny, which you talked about, is we really need to have a consistent data set for testing. I mean, we talk about it, and it does seem like we only get 1 or 2 years in a row, and then we're on a new data set, and it's impossible to identify trends. So a couple of really, really good things there. It's nice to see, and hopefully they appear in the next legislative session.
Just one other thing I would say, this was my first time through this, and I think it's helpful. Grace, if you're willing to bring it up, I won't add it to the motion or anything. I think the rationale is really helpful. They have it with new resolutions, but in the future, having rationale on changes might be helpful to further the advocacy of local boards and better inform us. Thank you. I'll leave it at that.
Anyone else? Okay, all those in favor? Okay, motion carries. All right, next item, RSU14 student handbooks.
I move to approve the RSU14 student handbooks, Wyndham High School, Katahdin, Jordan Small Middle School, Wyndham Middle School, Manchester Elementary School, Raymond Elementary School, and Wyndham Primary School.
Second. Thank you. Would you like to go first, Joe?
Sure. So first and foremost, what a body of work that the administration in each building takes on every year to put these handbooks together. And while it might seem like a minor thing to those that consume them, it's really important work as well. As we went through these, and I tried to give these a lot of attention again, especially being the first time I've gone through these, I did, identify a couple of policy discrepancies, and I think that as a board, we should commit now to try to think of a better mousetrap. I'm not quite sure what that is, but there's a better way out there to do this, I think, to achieve consistency across the schools with policies. And I say that because what happens is that the administrators put in their policy, their handbooks, summaries of important policies, which are great, but there's variation. And there's also variation in some of the links, and there's a lot of legislative onus on school boards to make sure that certain policies are communicated in certain ways each year. To that end, there were a lot of policies that changed this last year, and the policy committee did a lot of work in the last year, and not all of those changes were captured in time. We've identified a couple more things that need to be updated in the handbooks prior to them being distributed. To that end, though, we also don't want to delay the ability to disseminate those handbooks as we're so close to the start of school. So with that probably overly long preface, I'm actually going to make a motion to amend my own motion to add that approval of the handbooks is contingent upon adopting or correcting language which reflects recently changed policies and delegating this final update to the superintendent in consultation with the board chair and policy committee chair.
Second.
Thank you. So this would be board discussion on his amendment. Chris, can you outline maybe how that would work?
Yeah, and actually, Joe brought up a good point, because what's interesting with the handbooks in the past, handbooks would actually go out to print in June. And now that we've gone to a digital format, we've tried to now have handbooks be constantly updated. And you're absolutely right. Tobacco policy ADC, and then substance use policy JICH. Were a couple, and actually I was in today on a couple handbooks updating those, because when the administrators submitted them, it was before they had actually been approved. So there's been some recent submissions. I think one of the things we've also talked about is to work with the administrative team to actually have one body of policies that are consistent across all handbooks. But then some programs and some buildings are going to have some nuances that are specific to the building. And so looking to then streamline in. So Christine and I have some ideas on that. The other thing that we're trying to work through is that the policy page and how documents are posted there don't necessarily always match those 26 digits or whatever letters that Google generates when it generates a document, so that we may think that we're pointing to a live document, but it's actually pointing to an old version. And so making sure that we have a system, and it might just be we point to the policy page and that's going to be it. And in fact, a couple of policies you're looking at tonight, the ACs, which have not been approved but are going to be in handbook, and they're important changes, I just put in links to the policy page, just knowing that in the future it's going to be approved, but at the moment it's the policy as it is written. But policy is, the number of policies that are changing now is, it really needs to be a live document that goes through this. So no, we're working on a process, and I think a lot of those things have been identified and changed, but we'll continue to work through it.
I think this is my fourth time through, and the concerns that some of us had had, 2 or 3 years ago, is that the handbooks were very, very different in different schools. They seem a whole lot more consistent to me, and props and congratulations, and it's a lot of hard work, but I think they've really done a really good job at doing a better job at getting things to be similar within the district. So props to everybody. Lots of hard work.
I acknowledge some of the issues we've had. Certainly, I think as a policy team, we really dug into the handbooks. You had mentioned several of the policies that are required to be in the handbooks, including the ones that we are voting on tonight, just were changed kind of at the last minute. They needed to be in the handbook, and then for the first time, we asked all of the handbooks to have live links. I think some of them had before, but we kind of put that on the administrators, and we asked for them 2 weeks early, which was just a lot. So I do want to thank the administrators for that. I don't think I quite understand, though, the implication of Joe's amendment. I personally would be comfortable with the original motion approving them, because all of the handbooks have a disclaimer that states that if the handbook and the policy page differ, that the policy on our website would supersede. That's enough for me. I know it's not perfect. I would love to see these, perfectly up to date all the time, and I hope we get to a better process. I guess, is there any risk if we accept Joe's motion of approving them contingently? Like, what does that practically change?
There actually isn't any risk, and I think the concerns
Isn't
which
any?
there isn't any.
Okay.
And I think the concern, and specifically too, because these are the policies that are most often in play, especially the secondary level, ADC and JICH, that those are the most significant issues, and to make sure that those are correct, and that's why we've gone in the last couple days with the principals and made sure that those are correct and up to date with those recent changes, because especially with tobacco violations moving over to JICH, I think a lot of that's taken care of. Some of the other nomenclature pieces and the pieces of policy, ultimately it's the overall policy that rules. So there isn't any sort of risk to this. I think it would be something for us to talk about a policy as far as moving forward, maybe even having policy review all the summaries and then coming up with that standard summary list. But a standard summary list does not change the intent or the content of what's already there.
Would this mean we would have to bring it back to vote on again?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I think I am comfortable with your motion. Now, further discussion on Joe's motion. Go ahead, Grace.
I just wanted to thank the building administrators. I reached out with a couple of questions on some, and they responded so quickly, and knowing how busy they must be right now, I've almost was sorry to even be reaching out, but I want to thank them for responding so quickly, as well as Superintendent Hal, to a question that I had on these. So again, these are works in, I wouldn't say the works in progress necessarily, but the fact that they can be updated as needed so readily is really, really helpful, I believe, and they are incredibly thorough, so I was appreciative of that. Thanks.
Okay. Are we ready to vote on the amended? We vote on the amendment.
The amendment first.
Okay.
then
Christine,
motion
did
to
you
amend.
have the exact text of the amendment? Could you reread it for me, please?
Joe Kellner moved to amend the motion to add that approval is contingent upon adopting or correcting language which reflects recently changed policies and delegating this final update to the superintendent in consultation with the board chair and policy committee chair. Jenny Butler seconded.
Thank you. All those in favor? Okay, amendment carries. So now we vote on the original motion. Okay, all those in favor of the motion as amended? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. All right, next we are at policies.
All right, here we go. Only 10 of them. I'm going to be, I'm not playing solitaire on my phone. I've got copious notes from Jody, which I always so appreciate. The first policy we're going to talk about is JK. To that end, I move to approve the second revised reading of policy JK, student discipline.
Second.
Thank you. Public comment on the motion. Board discussion.
So this policy was last updated June 2013. The title's changed from discipline of students to student discipline. And we have added some important definitions, including positive interventions and restorative interventions that are consistent with our district's initiatives around our approach to discipline. The policy also adds a legislative change stating that recess may not be withheld as a consequence for any student in grade 5 or below, except that when there is no alternative time available. And in this policy and others, there was one major legislative change about how discipline is handled generally for those in grades 5 and below, and that's reflected throughout. Thank you.
Further discussion. All those in favor? Okay. Motion carries. Next policy, please.
Excuse me. I move to approve the first reading of policy AC, non-discrimination/equal opportunity and affirmative action.
Second.
Public comment? Board discussion?
So this policy was last revised in 2020. The policy's been updated to reflect the last legislative session, with changes taking effect August 1st, 2024. We reviewed the statute and MSMA and Drummond-Woodson samples, as well as legal and cross-references, which are reflected in the new proposed policy.
Further discussion? All those in favor? Okay, motion carries. Next policy.
I move to approve the first reading of policy ACAA, harassment of students.
Second.
Public comment? Board discussion?
Policy ACAA was last revised in 2020. The title has changed from harassment and sexual harassment of students to more generally harassment of students. The proposed policy is marked up for your review. You will notice several bold italic statements which will be removed in the final reading. The policy included a review of statute and MSMA and Drummond-Woodson samples, as well as the legal and cross-references which are reflected in the proposed policy.
Further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries. Next policy, please.
I move to approve the first reading of policy ACAA-R1, student discrimination and harassment complaint procedure.
Second.
Public comment? Board discussion?
ACAA-R1 accompanies ACAA. It replaces ACAA-R, which was last reviewed in 2020. This new proposed regulation replaces that. ACAA and ACAB will reflect the regulations respectively, being split into now 2 procedures with a view to manage complaints separating harassment from sexual harassment. This regulation outlines a now separated procedure to address all types of discrimination and harassment complaints other than sex discrimination and harassment.
Further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries. Next policy.
I move to approve the first reading of policy ACAA R2, student sex discrimination harassment complaint procedure.
Second.
Public comment? Board discussion?
ACAA R2, again, is the other part to replacing ACAA-R, which was last reviewed in 2020. This is a new proposed regulation. The regulation outlines a separated procedure to address all types of sex discrimination and sex-based harassment complaints. There are several new definitions which have been added in order to assist our affirmative action officer with the execution of this regulation.
Further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries. Next policy, please.
I move to approve the first reading of policy ACAB, harassment of employees.
Second.
Public comment? Board discussion?
ACAB, harassment of employees, was last reviewed in 2020. Note this is a title change from harassment and sexual harassment of school employees. These federal Title IX updates are reflected in the policy, follow the same proposed concept we just discussed with ACAA with the two separated regulations to accompany the proposed policy changes.
Further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries. Next policy, please.
I move to approve the first reading of policy ACAB-R1, employee discrimination and harassment complaint procedure.
Second.
Public comment? Board discussion?
I'm going to go off script. ACAB R1 is separated for the same reason ACAA R1 was.
Works for me. Further discussion? All those in favor? Okay, motion carries. Next policy, please.
I move to approve the first reading of policy ACAB-R2, employee sex discrimination / harassment complaint procedure.
Second.
Thank you. Public comment? Board discussion?
I'm going to go further off script and say same reason.
Okay. Anyone else? All right. All those in favor? Okay, motion carries. Next policy.
I move to approve the first reading of policy JIE, pregnant students.
Second.
Public comment? Board discussion?
JIE pregnant students is a new proposed policy recommended to comply with the federal Title IX regulations in order to comply with obligations not to discriminate in its education programs against students based on a student's current, potential, or past pregnancy or related conditions. Note that all of the A policies that we just reviewed have this policy as a cross-reference.
Additional discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries. Next policy, please.
I move to approve the first reading of policy AC-R, grievance procedures for persons with disabilities.
Second.
Public comment? Board discussion?
A bit more here. AC-R, the grievance procedure for persons with disabilities, is a change in nomenclature from formerly being IHBAL to being AC-R. This regulation was updated in 2010. We're proposing to adopt the following regulation with no substantial changes to the regulation, but to ensure it was reviewed with all the associated policies as a matter of good practice. The IHBAL on the website was an incomplete version of this policy. If somebody looked it up, it would show that, but AC-R corrects that. Thank you.
Further discussion? All those in favor? Okay, motion carries. Next item, executive session, readmission hearing 1.
I move to approve going into executive session to consider the possible readmission of a student pursuant to 1 MRSA subsection 405-6B.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Okay, motion carries. We will be back after our executive session.
We're going to go right across the hall. Yeah.
I know.
Welcome to.
We're not going to be conducting any more business out here. We'll vote on the executive sessions out here, but that's essentially it. Welcome to stay. By all means.
Yeah, we're not trying to make you leave, but
May not be
Where are the
able to-
lights at, Mr. Howell?
I'm sorry, my Siri keeps texting you thinking
Oh.
you're my wife.
Is her name Caitlin?
Yeah, her name's Keith.
Oh,
That's where that's coming from.
how funny. How does she spell it? They're all different, Joe.
Oh, yeah, it's 2 votes on the thing that we can't explain. So, but it was lovely meeting you. I hope to see you next time.
that's right. And they're until Thursday, till 3 anyway, right? Okay.
I was gonna say, I'll let my friends left.
Y'all here?
Okay, we have returned from executive session. May I have a motion, please?
I move to approve the student under consideration B readmitted to school and that the superintendent provides the parents with a written summary of the board's findings.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Thank you. Student is readmitted. All right, executive session readmission hearing 2. May I have a motion, please?
I move to approve going into executive session to consider the possible readmission of a student pursuant to 1 MRSA subsection 4056B.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Okay, motion carries.
started teaching him. I was old and he was young.
I laughed, so everybody laughed.
We have returned from executive session. May I have a motion, please?
I move to approve the student under consideration be readmitted to school and that the superintendent provides the parents with a written summary of the board's findings.
Second.
All those in favor? Motion carries. Student is readmitted. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor? Motion carries. Good night.